Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Nice to see you. Thanks for. Are we live?
We're live. Param Vijayate
Oh.
Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world
Great.
victory of Hare Krishna.
Param Vijayate
Hare
Sri Krishna
Krishna, Prabhu.
Sankirtanam. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
So, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to all our viewers watching live on the internet. Many of them not even born yet. Some will be watching us on the stream, others in the recording. My name is Śrīdhara Das, and I'm joined today by Śrīdhara Śrīnivāsa dāsa, author, scholar, Vaishnava, gentleman. And this conversation came about as a result of the debate that I had with Jivan Mukta Prabhu, do women have a Varna? And you've written an entire book about that, Prabhu. And you're actually quite famous there seems to be a big conversation about this in ISKCON at the moment for some reason. And your voice and your name comes up quite a lot in that, and your book gets referred to. So it's great to have you here for this conversation. Could you take a moment, Prabhu, to introduce yourself for people who don't know who you are and are meeting you for the first time, like me?
Thank you. It's a great opportunity to be present here in front of the whole world. So it's a small world, and it's nice. We use the technology. So I'm a software engineer by profession. I would start from there because I'm a software geek, and I worked in the software industry for quite some time now. So I'm an engineer by background. I'm born in Coimbatore, the place I'm sitting right now. This is the house that I've lived quite a long in the street. So I'm, born in 73 in a Vaishnava family, but then I was more into playing, and interests were never, nothing about spiritual, if you want to say that way. But had all the practices, but never understood some of those things, what they meant. So when I started working as a computer software engineer, and I went to the US, and right after my marriage, I explained this in my book, preface to the first book, which is actually this book, A Divine Prophecy, Predictions about Lord Chaitanya, the whole of ISKCON movement. So I came to an ISKCON temple. I didn't know it was an ISKCON temple. It was a religious visit, but then I somehow started attracted, by a Western pujari, a Western prabhu. I think it was Harivilas Prabhu giving a Bhagavad Gita class, and I was pretty skeptical. But then the message that I heard, I saw Radha Krishna deity, and I saw a devotee speaking about Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the only thing that I understood. But then I was thinking, I have heard this in India, but how come this Prabhu, this gentleman who is way far away from India, and I asked him, who told you this, that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead? So my journey into ISKCON started that way, asking a question. And then I was introduced to Prabhupada and so forth and so on. And for 5 years, I would participate in these ISKCON temple programs. And I got in touch with my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, and got initiated in 2006. And later on in 2011, I got my second initiation, and so forth and so on. And I moved out to India to specifically preach among Indians. That's one thing that I learned from my Guru Maharaj, that it was his desire to, because he said, you are born in a Vaishnava family, what are you doing in the US? I said, I could give you money. And he said, well, we don't need your money, we need you. So he caught hold of me, and I said, why don't you go? And again, it was, and then some changes happened in my life, in my work. They wanted me to go to India all of a sudden and start the R&D unit. So it looked like materially and spiritually it was all coming together. So in 2006, and I moved back to India actually, and I started a R&D division in Hyderabad, and later on in 2014, I fully stopped working for anyone. And right now I maintain my family by distributing Prabhupada books. And I also write and distribute my books. So this is my story. I live with my old mother, my wife, and daughter. So 3 generations of Matajis are with me. My father left this world in 2020.
2020.
That's the COVID time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
here I am. Yeah.
I want to ask you, did he leave from COVID? 2020, COVID time, your father left.
Well,
was it COVID?
I mean, it was a great departure, and it was not, in terms of material sense, it was not greatest departure, because there's no hospital. Hospitals were shut down. They were not accepting patients. So here we go, right? Early in the morning, my father is not responding, and we don't know what to do. And we called the doctor. The doctor said, well, we could probably send you a nurse to inject some saline. And they did something at the home. They sent a nurse who injected saline. He was semi-conscious, and he was in great pain because he was aging. He was 90, and he had sugars. So somehow his kidney failed, but no help. And I couldn't even. But anyway, we were all together with him. We showed I played Prabhupada's Hare Krishna mantra. Immediately he got reminded of some spiritual knowledge, and he was trying to get out of the body right at that spot. So, and I showed him a picture of Nrsingadev. So that was a great departure. But from a material sense, I couldn't get him a doctor to see him at that time. So yeah, what to do? It was a very tough time.
Yes. Well, the passing of a Vaishnava, powerful saṁskāra.
Yes, definitely. My father and my mother, it's a long story. If I keep going on my story, my father is a Śrī Vaiṣṇava. And he told me, after he saw me getting serious into ISKCON, he cautioned me, you are doing everything great, but don't join. Don't get initiated. I mean, basically he was referring that I would get initiated in Śrī Vaiṣṇava sampradāya. But I spoke to him through my sister, and I explained that I come to know about Śrī Vaiṣṇavism after studying Prabhupada books. So I have greatest appreciation for you and the whole sampradāya, but I find I should be loyal to Srila Prabhupada right now, because he spoke to me in a language I understood. And my father agreed later on. He saw me as a Bhagavata. And whenever my Guru Maharaj, he would meet my Guru Maharaj, he wouldn't hesitate falling multiple times, dandavats. So, yeah. There are
Sri Sampradaya means Ramanujacharya?
Yes, Ramanujacharya.
I was reading today an article, and it is from Vrindavan Mahamrita or something, and it's someone speaking to Mahaprabhu. He says, I will start my Sankirtan mission, and I will take 2 points from each of the 4 sampradayas.
Yes.
You know that quote?
Yes, I knew, and he took Vaishnava Seva, isn't it, from Sri Sampradaya.
I was just looking for it to try and find it, to find out what it was. Vaishnava Seva. Yeah, I remember that was one of them.
And Ramanujacharya even mentioned the famous quote that one of his followers didn't understand anything, but he would say, just sit in the Vaishnava Sangha, in the lecture. But he said, I wouldn't understand. He said, no problem, just sit. serve the Vaishnavas by hearing. So there is a great emphasis of Vaishnava Seva.
Jai. And so how did you come about to write? So you wrote your first book, which is about the prediction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the Alvars, right? Who are the
Yes.
saints of the Sri Sampradāya?
Yes. And
Okay.
that was a coincidence. It was not that I was going and studying Śrī Vaiṣṇava scriptures. It was clearly, I knew nothing of Śrī Vaiṣṇava scriptures. I would fess up.
Huh.
You would ask how? Yeah, I would know some things, but I don't know. I don't know the meaning. I didn't have a good idea of who Alvars were, because I was not into. I was religious. I was practicing. I was told in culture, but by mercy of Srila Prabhupada, I really started to understand.
Sure.
And
then you
so
got interested
I
in
was distributing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just I can see you grew up in a Śrī Vaiṣṇava family. Your father's like, hey, this is great, you're getting into it, but it's the wrong one. You should get into the Śrī Vaiṣṇavism. But you went all in on Prabhupada's books. That's where you got your faith and you got
Yes.
connected. And then you went back and looked at Śrī Vaiṣṇavism. This is how it
No,
happened?
not on my own. Not on my own. That was also an arrangement. I was distributing Prabhupada books in
Gotcha.
front of a temple, and Nam Alvar, one of the Alvar's deity, the deity usually it's in the copper. You might have seen a very nice deity in a copper or a bronze. That deity came out on procession, and
Okay.
my friend who was next to me, much senior to me, Krishna Namat Prabhu, he told me that this deity has composed so many poems, and in one of the poems he talks about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Okay.
And that was and he told me only 3 words. The first 3 words. He said, I do not know much other than the first 3 words. And he said, Poliga, Poliga, Poliga. That's all I knew. And I had to come and get onto the Google, start searching. And I asked my father, and my father picked up his book. He started searching. We did this together, and for 2 years, I wouldn't find it. And 2 years later, I somehow find one of our dearest scholars writing an article in Dandavats on that very same verse. You would probably know Damian Martins, Bhakta Damian Martins. He is a Gauḍiya-vaiṣṇava research scholar.
Okay.
And he goes around.
I haven't heard of him.
And so he explained in that article, and then I started researching, and I ended up writing a book trying to find out more about it. And this is the book, which has some
Amazing.
pictures that can connect. Pretty
Is it
amazing.
available on Kindle?
I am pretty slow on all these things. I have to do this, and I'm working on it very soon.
Okay.
I'm planning to put this up on Kindle.
Okay,
So,
but can
yeah,
people
that's
buy
the
it from
first book I came
Amazon.com?
out. It was, again, it is available in Amazon.com. I can send you the link in the messenger. Even Flipkart
Okay.
has it.
Yeah, great. We'll add it to the comments. Or if someone's watching and you can Google it for us and drop it in the comments, that would be awesome. Okay, so that's the first book. Now, when did you write that book?
This was in I started to work on it since 2012, and I actually published the book in 2017. That is the 1000th anniversary. That was first in Tamil. This book is available in the language Tamil, and then I wrote it in English. So in 2018, I published it in English.
Epic. And then the second book, which is Female Diksa Gurus, Why Do We Need Them? When did that book come out?
Do we need them? This is pretty hot out of the press. It was 2022, October. And I started working. Okay, this topic has been debated for quite some time. And I made multiple trips to Mayapur to attend the GBC meetings. And I was part of the first book that we wrote. Prior to this book, we wrote a book called Vaishnava Diksha, according to Narada Pancharatra.
thanks to Kavita Ramachandran for coming through with the link, The Divine Prophecy. It's Prabhu's first book. Now we're on to the second book. Thanks for that, Kavita. Female Diksha Gurus, do we need them? Yeah. So you were going to, sorry, I got distracted. You were going to the GBC meetings. You were...
Yeah, we were going to the GBC meetings. And we were, actually, I was part of a team from 2017 when Shivram Maharaj and Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj engaged us, myself, Krishna Kirti Prabhu, Damodar Prabhu, into a research into this topic. They wanted to know the Shastric versions, especially from Pancharatra scriptures. And that's when we came across the Pancharatra scripture, Bharadwaj Samhita. Then we presented it. And we even wrote a book, small booklet. It is available in Bhakti Vikāsa. I think it's, I have to see, it's available in Narada Pancharatra, female, what is that? Vaishnava Diksha according to Narada Pancharatra. That's available even online, archive.org. And if Kishori Priya Mataji, Kavita Mataji can look up that and post in the comment, that would be great.
That would be epic.
Thanks Mataji. I really appreciate that. Because of lack of short of time, I want to run through this. So, as part of that book, which was in 2019, it's a booklet. And that's when that book introduced the Siddhanta for female Diksha Guru. Basically, researching the Narada. I went to the library, Adayar. There is a Chennai, has a famous library which has manuscripts on palm leaves. So, I located the palm leaf manuscripts to verify the verses, because we had to do what we had to do. We didn't want to just go about. So we did the full 9 yards of research, and then we presented those verses, and there was some refutation to that as part of, I think, Madan Mohan Prabhu, who I think he is still the GBC deputy for Russia, or he was at that time. He wrote another book, Guru, the Principle, Not the Body, refuting that book. So in this book, I represented the Siddhanta first, and then I had to present all the arguments from that particular scripture. The three verses from Bharadwaj Samhita reconciles all of the statements of Prabhupada on this topic. And so that's presented in this book.
Okay,
and
this book is the answer.
The answer is, I should say, no and yes. No,
I love it.
I don't want to say yes and no. The reason is no as a general rule. Na chatu mantrata nari as a general rule. But yes, if pratyakshita atmanatanam naisham chintayan kuladikam, if these devotees are able to see the Lord face to face, or they are so advanced at the level of prema bhakti, whether they are Shudra or Antyaja or Strī, we shouldn't consider the Kula aspect.
Okay, great. Now, I know you have a whole presentation that you want to go into. Can I ask a question about this point?
Yes.
Okay, so this point right here. So, yes, we should not consider anything if they are at this topmost level, right? Does that mean that Diksha Gurus, according to the Praman that you've studied, male-bodied Diksha Gurus don't need to be like Mahabhagavat Uttama Adhikaris on the level of Prem? Is that what you're saying? That there is such a thing as a lower level or a conditional identified with the body guru, and if that's the case, they can be a male guru, but if they're a fully liberated soul, then they're beyond the bodily platform. Do you see what I'm asking here? It sounds as though what you just created means there's a bodily conditioned guru.
Yeah, it's very close to the, if I were to rephrase your question just to make sure that my understanding is right.
Thank you.
Why are these conditions applicable to male guru? If a male is a conditioned, if he is pratyaksh, okay, let me explain this. This particular verse is not exclusive only to female. It says Strī Shudradi. Strī means woman, Shudra means men.
Uh-huh.
Antyaja is generally those who are outside of Varna.
It
So-
says antyaja as well.
Let me go through that page number 16 on my book. I just
Okay,
have to
page
refer to
16.
that. Kimapyatrabhijayante yogina sarva yonishu. So it says yogina sarva yonishu. If somebody is a yogi on the platform of yogi, he could be born in any yonishu means birth.
Womb. Any womb.
Womb. Yes, any womb. It can be. But if they are pratyakshita atmanatana. So, and the previous verse that says, Triyaha Shudradayas-chaiva. You can say the verse is clearly saying, Bodhayeyur hitahitam yatarham manyanascha narhantya-ācāryatvam kachit. The meaning is, they may give instructions among their group. Stri Shudradi Shu. But they can
Wow.
never be, among their group, small instructions. Bodhayetur hitahitam. As appropriate. But they can never be Acharya. It's clearly saying that.
That sounds like
So-
shiksha though, rather than diksha.
Yeah, it can be. Yes, definitely. That's where they can see. The answer to the first question that you asked is it yes or no or yes. Women are, as a mother, they are guru. They are the first guru. But they have to be mother. That means they have to be married, under the protection of a husband, and they are going to teach their children and the dependents. So the shiksha, they do give shiksha in this way. Mother definitely instructs her children actually. So point is, the Shastra says, for men there are certain set of criteria, and for women there are general set of criteria. The for women, they cannot become Diksha Guru as a general rule. But the exception is if they are at the platform. And even Shudra. That means somebody who is born in Shudra, but he is a yogi, he is practicing, and he is able to see the Lord face to face. And one good example is Baladev Vidya Bhushana uses this same verse to answer in his commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam 1.13.5. He answers a question. Vidura was a Shudra by birth. How could he instruct Dhritarashtra? He raises a question. He himself raises a rhetorical question, and he's going to answer
Beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
And he answers. It's in my book, but I can paraphrase. He straight away answers that because he was Dharma Raja Shakshat in the previous birth. He is incarnate.
Yamaraj himself.
He is Dharma Raja himself. So he has all the qualities of a pratyakshita atmanatana. So he uses this Bharadwaj Samhita verse as his substantial, as his evidence. And he says, based on this evidence, he explains that Vidura could instruct Dhritarashtra.
Why does such a statement need to be made, though, about Stri and Shudra? This is my point here. If we say that they need to have seen the Lord face to face and then they're qualified, does that mean that there are Diksha Gurus, Vaishnava Diksha Gurus among the other groups who have not seen the Lord face to face?
No, the general rule is somebody who has Brahmanical quality, especially a man, and that is also given in Bharadwaj Samhita previous verses 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. And it says who can be a guru, and then it comes to the place where who cannot be, and then it gives the exception.
Okay.
So as per the general rule, the function of a guru generally belongs to the male, and the female is, to an extent, can be siksha instructing. supportive.
The wife of the guru.
Guru Mata. What's that?
The wife of the guru.
Yes, Guru Mata, Guru Patni, Guru Raja Mata. In that way.
Yeah.
Definitely, as I saw the other conversation between yourself and I wouldn't call it a debate, because as far as until 1 hour, there was no sign of a debate. It was a great discussion.
Yeah. He came in there. See, I called it because in another discussion, he put in the messenger, women have no varna. I was like, this is a debate. We can debate this. But he came on there and conceded like guna, and like he conceded so much,
Yeah.
you know?
No, he clarified what he meant, which is what I also, again, I'm not trying to jump into the topic, but I when I heard that topic, and I find that there is a specific social role for everyone. Yeah. And Prabhupada himself gave that wanted us to follow that social role. Mm-hmm. So on a spiritual platform, we wouldn't be discussing any of these things if we are all totally spiritual. Mm-hmm. But because we have conditions, we are gradually coming out, we need these rules and regulations. So the point is, the Varnashrama Dharma is the activity, guna and karma, specifies the karma for men. The women take part in Varnashrama Dharma as a supportive personality following the Strī Dharma, because their linga means gender. The gender is immutable. I'm not talking about what they do, gender change or surgeries, but the psychology, the mentality, everything comes with a gender is immutable. So as part of the gender, they have certain dharma, karma to follow. So that's where we understand, and I kind of explained that in my presentation.
Okay.
How
which I've
to
jumped in front
understand
of.
this. It's okay. You had a question. That's an interesting way to start. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Would you like to go to the presentation now?
Yeah. Let me do my present screen.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me you
ready?
can see my screen. Okay. And
we can see the screen.
Is this big enough? Or you want me to maximize?
Yeah, if you could maximize it, that'd be great. Yes, perfect.
Okay. So one thing that you will be seeing throughout my book, and which I personally, and I think every one of us actually follow this, as Shastra is the center of all. So Prabhupada's purport from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 20.352, this purport is the fulcrum or hub or whatever you want to call of the entire understanding of pretty much everything, and specifically this topic. So here Prabhupada says in this that if a saintly person does not speak according to Shastra, he is not a saintly person. So the actual center should be Shastra. So this is what we have to remember as the I describe this as the anchor, as well as this is the rudder of the ISKCON ship. Now, I'm going to talk pretty much about my book, what is covered in my book. The book structure of the book is, it has got at least 3 parts. The first part has got 30 pages. And 4 parts, but the middle 2 parts are, in the first part, we established the Siddhanta based on Bharadwaj Samhita and clear what is not Siddhanta. And the second and the third part are specifically answering all questions raised in the form of arguments in 2 books. One is Kaunteya Prabhu's Woman Diksa Guru, And the second book is Madan Mohan Prabhu's Guru, the Principle, Not the Body. So, and we also refute some positions taken by Shastric Advisory Council papers 2005 and 2013. And pretty much I want to say what is the basis of my book. I like the way Sriman Vedanta Deshika wrote his famous Śrī Vaiṣṇava scripture, Rahasya Traya Sara, in which he establishes Siddhanta Sthapana as the first part, establishing the philosophy, principles, and Virodha Pariharam means answering, refuting all the opposing arguments based on Guru Sadhu Shastra. So in the first 30 pages, I pretty much cover that Narada Pancharatra Bharadwaj Samhita is a scriptural evidence against the female Diksha Guru. And it's giving us the guiding principles. So it is identifying the principles, and this section also brings books or the basis with respect to Prabhupada. There is a gamut of instructions, but Prabhupada's books are basis. And we also talk about there were some arguments and there were some resolutions that were put forward as an answer. Like, for example, cultural sensitivity was used as a carpet. Basically, in this culture, you may not have female Diksha Guru. You have an option to opt out. In another culture, you can. So these were proposed, but there is no Shastric background. So we have to identify those principles and explain why it is not possible. For example, I give an example in my book. I'm a computer geek, as I first introduced myself, and I'm a favorite of arithmetic calculations. I'm just going to run a formula here. 2 times 8 plus 3 divided by 4 minus 3 times 2. Are you able to see this? What I'm trying to say is, even in a mundane society, there are some rules of reading a particular way. Japanese and Chinese and some of the Arabs, most of the Arabs, read from right to left. They will start from this point, 2, then they'll go to 3, they'll go to 4, 3. This is, and rest of the world will go from here, left to right. So this itself, I'm not even going into the operator precedence. Should we do the multiplication first? Should we do the division first? Should we do the addition first? Should we do the subtraction first? I'm not even going there. But at least I have to agree upon, should I start from left or should I start from right? We cannot say in Japan and China and Arab countries, mathematics can be done from right to left, and in rest of the world, in US and India, they can start from left to right. We will never come at a proper conclusion. So even in a Vyavaharika matter, Vyavaharika means social matters, we have proper guideline. So having culturally sensitive resolutions will not work because they are not based on the guideline from Shastra. There has to be Shastric guideline. So I'll touch upon that a little bit. And also,
I'm making a note of this.
Yeah, please make a note during the question time. Some of the resolutions were made that primary protectors of women can be other than what is mentioned in Shastra. Shastra mentions primary protectors as father before marriage, husband after marriage, and grown-up son in the old age. there are no new protectors like brahmacharini, some ashram, or some temple residence, or some Vaishnavi Sangha, private Vaishnavi Sangha. There are no such allowances. So creating, the GBC resolutions were saying that we could have different primary protectors. So we countered that, this book, as part of Siddhanta. And also, Shastric Advisory Council came up with, all of a sudden, a hermeneutics manual, which has got several issues. And GBC was trying to use that as a basis. So this book briefly touches upon what could be the problem. So yeah, and also in the first part, we identify, if we neglect Narada Pancharatra Bharadwaj Samhita, if we reject it without knowing the history and importance, then we'll have great issues. Because Prabhupada says very clearly that ISKCON follows Narada Pancharatra as the basis for Diksha. So if we are talking about female Diksha Guru or male Diksha Guru, whatever, this Diksha that we are talking about is Pancharatra Diksha, not Vaidika Diksha. Pancharatra Diksha have to follow Pancharatra scriptures. So we cannot reject Narada Pancharatra Bharadwaja Samhita as a scripture not applicable to ISKCON. And Srila Prabhupada also instructs us in Bhagavatam 4.31.10 purport that more quotations can be found about Varna, Ashrama, Diksha in scriptures such as Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, Bharadwaj Samhita, and Pancharatra scriptures, other Pancharatra scriptures. So Prabhupada is expecting us that we would do this research. But when we do this research, some of the proponents side tend to dismiss this Narada Pancharatra Bharadwaj Samhita as a hitherito, unheard scripture, which is not true. And the book also goes through some of the important points that Krishna Tattva Veta explains that based on Bhagavatam purport 6.16.43. It's an interesting section where Bhagavata Dharma and Varnashrama Dharma are described as parallel tracks. And that is the definition of Krishna Tattva Veta. So we cannot ignore Varnashrama Dharma. That's another point brought out in the book. And regarding Varna, Ashrama, and gender, we describe saṁskāra as the linchpin. That is, the book describes in brief that there is Varna. Varnashrama basically is guna, karma. And karma has two parts. One is activities in this present life, but activities that result in reactions or from previous birth, prarabdha. So when we say Varna is not by birth alone, as Prabhupada says, what it means is if somebody is born in a Varna which is not broken, which is proper Savarna, means unbroken, and if they are practicing in this age, continuing to practice, unlike Ashwatthama, even though he had proper birth of Brahmana, but he didn't behave like a Brahmana. If somebody is a true Brahmana, Prabhupada says there is no problem. But in Kali Yuga, predominantly the Varnas have mixed up. The parents themselves do not know clearly to trace their Varna. So Varna has to be predominantly based on guna and karma that is happening now. We cannot rely heavily on the prarabdha. But my point is prarabdha karma cannot be dismissed. And that's where we do get some nature from previous lives. So saṁskāra, as somebody may be antyaja today, and as they get initiated by Pancharatra Diksha, very important, they must get Pancharatra Diksha, then they start to follow samskaras. And as they start gradually following, they will evoke their nature, and children will be born into that nature, and the second generation from then on, or third generation, they will be following their parents, And the parents should follow the saṁskāra, and as such. And Sitapati Prabhu, this is what you were explaining in your talk, and I saw that there is a parallel. That's why that goes in my topic, saṁskāra as the linchpin, that it ties these things together. Anyway, I'll quickly go to the second parts that is there in the book. This is where we refute some of the Kaunteya Prabhu's book. It was written in 2013. For nearly 10 years, there has been no formal refutation. So I went through the book and I found major issues. And there were some issues with respect to credibility of research also. The problem being there were so many ellipses, which means it left out the context or the middle part. I don't want to go over that a lot, but there are some things like sacred thread for women.
Sorry, Prabhu, what's the name of this book?
This book is, I believe it is, Did Srila Prabhupada Want Woman Diksa Gurus?
Okay.
And I think I mentioned that in my book also. And yeah, you could search it out. But this book has got so many problems that, for example, showing an iconography of a sculpture, and the back side of it or the front side of a Parvati statue as having a yajñopavitam, means sacred thread. So I went to there is a university, there is a famous Stapati means sculptors. There is a university that grants degree in Chennai, Mahabalipuram. Chennai, Mahabalipuram is famous for sculptures. And I went and I asked the professors and researched them. They showed me books of Shilpa Shastra. One of them is Manasara. And I found clearly that says that for female deities, there is no Yajna Sutra. And I present those Shastras reference in my book. And what is seen as, it looks like Yajna Sutra, but it is really not Yajna Sutra. It is Stanavara. You know, the deities in those days, they will pretty much women also do not cover a whole lot of their upper part. So they would have some jewels that covering the breast part. So to hold the jewels in place, it is called stana. You need some hanging around the neck and hanging around the waist. So it looks like that's what is there in the Shastra. It is so this kind of, what was Kaunteya Prabhu's proposal is that, say, you know, if there is an argument that women cannot get sacred thread, so they cannot become Diksha Guru. And he tries to refute that, saying that there are proof that women had sacred thread before. But that's not the case as per Shilpa Shastra. So again, you know, we have to go through Shastra. I cannot accept anything based on logic. So then there is another, Kaunteya Prabhu argues that Saraswati is the first female Diksha Guru of Lord Brahma, quoting Brahma Samhita. But few verses later, next verse, third verse, it is clearly said that Gayatri is given through Lord Krishna's flute. And so Krishna is the Diksha Guru, not Saraswati. So it may appear when we read scriptures, but we have to go through the context. We have to go through the full context. And there are so many things that I bring out. And one of the famous thing is his argument about Suniti argument, the famous purport, Srimad Bhagavatam 4.12.32. This one, he argues that family relationship is the reason, not specifically mother. There are some editors did some changes. So he pulled up the original manuscript of Prabhupada and he said family relationship. That means woman is not the reason, family relationship is the reason, but it doesn't work that way, because we see Vedanta Deshika initiated his son, Kumara Varadaraja. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur initiated Lalita Prasad Thakura by Siddha Pranali. So we cannot generalize it as family relationship. I mean, it has to be understood. So again, and there is a famous, so many things. FDG is present in Gaudiya tradition. We also go through that. There are some very few, but what are we to follow? And Kaunteya Prabhu brings the Diksha lineage from the sampradāyas of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Diksha sampradāya. We follow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and we follow Srila Prabhupada. Never mentioned the Diksha lineage of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So we cannot jump over Srila Prabhupada Thakur. Anyway, and there are several anti-varnashrama narratives and egalitarian narratives that are all answered. So I'll quickly go over this would be probably my last section. I'll take another few minutes. This is Madan Mohan Prabhu's book. In that book also Madan Mohan Prabhu's book is much more shastric. He brings out from several shastras and he does present, but still we find there are some problems with misrepresenting Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura and misrepresenting Srila Prabhupada regarding Suniti and also misrepresenting Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava. So I don't want to, that is something that I hate to mention, but it has to be mentioned. It's not that I focus on the negative part, but it is something that if the whole pot of rice, to test a whole pot of rice, it is enough to test 1 or 2 grains, and it has to be done because a writing must be consistent from page 1 to page n. So, and also I find some ideas that are there in the book that are severely insulting Suniti as being very vengeful. These are all not there as per Prabhupada and as per our acharyas we find. And his main arguments are Suniti argument as underdetermination. I don't know if you know underdetermination means there are more than one viable options going by Srimad Bhagavatam 4.12.32 purport. So which one to take?
Do you know what is the Sanskrit word for that, Prabhu?
I don't know. What is that? What is that? Avyapti.
That's it. Avyapti. And Ativyapti.
Ativyapti, Avyapti. Actually, he says Ativyapti. Ativyapti means extra, too many. So, when we see from the lens of Bharadwaj Samhita, Shastra as the center of all, there were 6 points presented. And all the 6 points reduces to only one and only option. So, that's how it is presented. And I also answer. They say some of the proponents say that it is not female Diksha Guru, it is Vaishnavi Diksha Guru. That there is a difference between female and Vaishnavi. That female may not be a Diksha Guru, but Vaishnavi can be Diksha Guru. So all these are answered. I mean, again, I cannot go over all the details, and there are also some caste by birth. Suniti's qualification was challenged. Yuga Dharma was, you can go through this. And especially Janava Mata's position was very nicely explained by this article of Śrīdhara Maharaja. So that also is added. So that pretty much is my book about. Sorry if I had taken a longer time, but I had to present this at least. So let me stop sharing unless you want to go back to certain pages later.
Okay, I took a bunch of I wrote down some points and some questions that I'd like to explore.
One last thing I want to show before you start. I think if everybody can read. A Brahmana sees through the Shastra. A king sees through his spice. A cow sees through its nose to detect eatables. And an ordinary man sees through his eyes. Chanakya Pandita. So that's the theme of the presentation that I personally and also everyone, I believe Prabhupada wanted us to see through Shastra.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so we got some shout outs from the viewers. Krishna Kirti's giving you props. He's out there. He also came through with the Vyapti for you, but you knew it already. And Ati Vyapti, of course, means more, too much, over-specifying and under-specifying. Okay, I've got a bunch of questions here. We got some questions in the comments so far. For those who are watching live, feel free to drop some more comments or questions into the chat and we can pull them in. But because I'm here in person, I get the first one. So the name of your book is Female Diksa Gurus, Do We Need Them? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Is it answering the question, do we need them? Or is it answering the question, can we have them?
Yeah, actually, I wanted the book to have a title that will at least raise some interest and ask such questions. So it's a good question. Can we have them? Do we need them?
Yeah.
Both are answered.
Right.
Both are answered because do we need them is, if you see from a, even though where are we now and how do we go where we want to go? So from a varnashrama perspective, if you see, and the whole thing about how woman as a mother is the foremost guru, and it's so everybody should be a mother first, not an independent guru. So do we need an independent female guru who's not probably in any ashrama? Answer is no, I would say, because we want to implement varnashrama dharma, that daiva varnashrama dharma, and that's what Prabhupada said, 50% of his work. So before we answer, do we need them, we also have to find out, can we have them, as you said, because Shastra is the center of all. And Shastra says, as a general rule, you cannot have, but if there are some, like Janava Mata, even in a varnashrama dharma setup, if we come up with somebody self-manifesting, we are not going to say no. But first of all, we should have adhikara to either say yes or no. I mean, if I'm not a judge, again. So both the questions, what should have been the title? My original thought was female Diksha Gurus, not so many.
The Prabhupada quote.
The Prabhupada quote. And then I didn't want to come out as, taking Prabhupada's quote specifically as saying that's my title. Anyway, I considered, then this was something, and the icon here.
The question
I didn't
mark.
explain that. It's not just the question mark. It's a lot more punctuations to it than just the question mark. This whole figure is made of punctuation marks. There's nothing other than punctuation marks.
Oh.
Sorry, that was just a sense of humor. Maybe not in good. I mean, not no pun intended there. But I just wanted us to go from Shastra as the center of all, and go with Acharya's desires of implementing Varnashrama Dharma, and as Daiva centered. So what is favorable, what is needed is what is answering that question now.
Yeah. Okay. So there's two kind of directions that I've got here. Again, this is to the first question. When I start to consider female Diksha Gurus, people ask me about it. I'm like, can we even answer the Diksha Guru question? Like every time I start to think about like the Diksha Guru issue, I almost become a Ritvik, I'm like, is that like, it's like here or then like this. Here's my question about this. if we're saying that, yes, if someone's self-manifested, for example, they can be, is what we're saying then that a Diksha Guru doesn't have to be some fully liberated, completely non-identified with the body all the time, upanayana Mahabhagavat? Is that what we're saying here?
Sorry, I missed that part. One more time?
Yeah.
No, okay. If I understand your question right, should a Diksha Guru be always Uttamadhikari, or need not be a Uttamadhikari? Can be Madhyama.
Yeah.
Actually, in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada says, and a Guru can reveal only that much to the disciple as much he is realized. So, if we have, yes, Kanishtas, even in Kanishtas there are Gurus. Madhyamas can be Gurus, but they will be able to reveal to their disciples only that much. And it's a step-by-step process. So yes, we can have Gurus who are not fully self-realized in that sense. It's not that, but if they are following, because if they are following their Guru, evam parampara praptam. Okay, this is one thing I wanted to start this conversation. All of us have to go through, before we jump to Pancharatra, all these things, each one of us have to go through the stages of anartha nivritti. So, and we, first and foremost, for our anartha nivritti is we have to accept Shastras as the center. Because not able to come to this term that Shastra is the center of all, itself is a big anartha. So, if I were to see whether a Guru has to be fully realized or partially realized, first, what is the Shastric injunction? So, do we know the Shastric injunction for statements that only Uttamadhikari can be a Guru? Apparently, there are several places that even Srila Prabhupada in 4.12.33 purport. He says, if a disciple is strong enough, he can carry his Guru, even though the Guru is not fully realized or is not fully qualified. Can you pull up?
Yeah.
I can pull up that particular purport.
Yeah.
So
please.
Srila Prabhupada himself brings out that, and he is Uttama Adhikari, but he puts himself in a very humble position and comes and says that one day one of my disciples will carry me back home, back to Godhead.
This is the way.
So I understand here that yes, this is a way, Prabhupada's statement is there, right there. And definitely there are statements from Shastra that brings about that a guru who is in the Madhyama platform can act as a guru, but his adhikar of delivering is only to that extent.
Okay. It's pretty implied, right? By if you say that, oh yes, a woman can be a Diksha Guru if she's fully liberated, the only reason you have to say that is because it must mean there are not fully liberated gurus as well.
Well, that would be a stretch because it's not stated in the Shastra as such. The previous verses of Bharadvat Samhita clearly brings about the qualifications necessary for male also. And in that it doesn't mention that, it mentions about the Brahminical qualities. So it doesn't mention that one has to be Pratyakshita Atmanatanam.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So that's a the whole thing, yeah. The whole thing of Pratyakshita Atmanatanam is only mentioned. You have to see the commentators, a Vaishnava, Śrī Vaiṣṇava commentator starts saying, I don't know Sanskrit to speak Sanskrit, but I understand what he said. In the previous two verses, he specifically says the nishedas, the prohibitions presented in the two previous verse, which is what I said in page number 16 of my book, that a woman cannot become mantra guru and they may give some instructions, but never an acharya. So these are the two verses that are nishedas, prohibiting. And the third verse is the exception. And the commentary to that exception says that we are referring only to the two verses above. With respect to the two verses, there is an exception that if one is a pratyakshita atmanatana, they can be considered qualified.
Okay.
So the point I'm trying to make is, for men, so-called, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, by quality, whatever you want to say, there is one set of rules. And for the Shudras, three antyajas, if they are pratyakshita atmanatanam, they can be gurus.
Okay, interesting. So, I mean, in Varnashram, the Brahmanas are the natural spiritual masters of societies. So you're saying that Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, although it's not their dharma of the Varna, they can act as gurus. So this is like some parallel or orthogonal system to the Varnas?
Yeah, I mean, no, Brahmanas are, they themselves go to a Brahmana. And in rare cases where we have found that Vishwamitra, he was a Kshatriya, and he later on ended up becoming a Brahmana. So Rishabhadev, he was a king. He ended up, teaching his sons. We have a whole set of teachings. So everybody understood their roles. And the predominant primary role of Brahmana is Patana, Patana, Yajana, Yajana, Dana, Pratigrahana.
Mm-hmm.
So Brahmanas follow that. As part of Patana, Patana is Diksha.
Mm-hmm.
And Kshatriya Dharma is predominantly to protect the Brahmanas and protect all citizens. And if they do instruct certain, they do have give instructions. It's not that, so some Kshatriyas, actually it is said, they have to become Brahmanas to be gurus. Because in Rishabhadev's, he had 100 sons. 81 of them became Brahmanas.
Okay.
They became Brahmanas.
Okay.
By quality developed. So Kshatriya, they may be born. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, this has been kind of going in one direction, which is to the past, if you like, and to the Shastra, right? So, yeah. I mean, it's pretty clearly established, at least on the basis of that Shastra. Krishna Kirti Prabhu's making some supporting points in the comments about the two verses that you mentioned. I'll just pull it in so people can see it. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:12, 33, and 32, which you mentioned a couple of times. So that's going kind of back to the past. We might say to the ideal. I want to talk now in the other direction, and which is like, okay, well, what do we do now, and how do we get there? So
I think
you mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I see that you proposed another talk that we didn't get to it. We are an antyaja platform. How do we transform into Vaishnava platform, or from antyaja? How do you go?
I have that. Yeah, I actually have that as number 4 on my list of points. We've done the first one. We might be able to get to that.
Okay.
Because you told me, remember to put it down, so I've got it down here. And I think this is going to lead us to it. Now, the first thing you mentioned is the culturally sensitive resolutions in your paper. I was personally very surprised to see such a thing. To me, it looked like a recipe for fracturing ISKCON, fragmenting it. Like, my whole idea of the GBC is that they make sure that the standards, Srila Prabhupada standards, are uniformly followed across the federation of ISKCON, and that's what makes ISKCON ISKCON. Once you start making different things for different places, suddenly it's no longer a world-conquering movement. It's just a balkanized. But don't we already have that? Don't we already have deity worship for women outside of India? And in India, women don't do deity worship. In
Good.
ISKCON.
I expected this question because it is there in my
good. You're prepared.
book also. it naturally leads to that question that, well, Prabhupada did differently. That he made brahmacharini ashram. He had women worship deities outside of India. So I'd like to quickly present. Thanks to Krishna Kirti Prabhu for, some time back he shared this with me. But I knew this, that women can worship deities. There is nothing stopping them from worshipping deities. But there are some rules to it. They cannot. Are you able to see the screen?
It's up there now.
Yeah, there are shlokas that clearly says that how they can get mantras. So they get mantras based on nama. Yeah, right here. Shudranam chaiva bhavati namna vai devatarchanam. Right here, devatarchanam. So Shudras, and even it says three. Strinam apya adhikaro asti Vishnoraradhana dishu. Sorry, I'm not very good. This is not a very clear one for me. I have some difficulty in reading. My eyesight is not that good, but I'd like to get a better print than this. So what it clearly says here is they do have adhikara to worship. This is there in Shastra. So using, and I don't know how, then why do we don't find this in temples? Actually, the answer is here. How can they worship? They can worship by names only. They cannot worship by mantra. So in all of India temples, there are two systems, Vaidika Marga and even Pancharatra Agama Marga. So the temple worship is based on Pancharatra Marga. And some concessions are given for Shudra and Strī to worship at home. For example, let me tell you, in Śrī Vaiṣṇava sampradāya, I have to give you an example from Śrī Vaiṣṇava sampradāya because that's something that I have seen, how they do. So we can take some, when they do Pancha Saṁskāra, they give the mantra, Ashtakshari mantra, which is 8-syllable mantra. Om Namo Narayanaya. When they give this mantra to Strīs and Shudradi, because they detect Shudras by birth, they say they don't say Aum. They give the mantra as They break the pranava. It's no longer pranava. So what it has only Namo Narayanaya, name. There is only name there. So they follow this Shastric injunction and it is presented. Even in Mukunda Mala Stotra, you can see Kulashekara Alvar many times presents Namo Narayanaya. He didn't present Om Namo Narayanaya. He removed, basically when they present Namo Narayanaya Mantram, I think it is there. So, point I am trying to make is Srila Prabhupada established a home standard outside of India, and there were no male qualified devotees. He was a apata dharma. There is another explanation that during the times of emergencies, you probably know that apata dharma.
Are you really saying? Do I hear you correctly? What I'm hearing you say is, I'm like, well, women can worship in the temples outside of India, but they can't worship in the temples in India. And what I heard you say was, the ISKCON temples outside of India are not real temples.
No, do they have Dvajastamba? Do they have? I'm just saying, the deities that, especially in the initial days, was Prabhupada Prana Pratishtha, did he emphasize on Pancharatra Vidhi? In 60s and 70s, can you find some place where Prabhupada, the only temple that Prabhupada really did was in Vrindavan and Juhu, especially in Vrindavan. He brought, and he said actually that these are not needed. That is true, that Nama is sufficient for Kali Yuga.
So, I'm hearing you say that
But that's my understanding that Prabhupada himself said that.
I don't think it's a very strong argument, because if we open a temple in Chicago and then we open a temple in Coimbatore, I'm not sure if I got that name right.
Yeah,
Coimbatore?
you got it right.
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, we just opened the Nam temple in both places. What makes one of them it's
Yeah.
the fact that it's in India.
No,
It's, you know,
that is-
it's
No. I didn't. When I meant in general India, when I
Uh-huh.
meant generally in India,
Yeah.
I'm referring to traditional temples. So what I
Uh-huh.
try to explain is Strī and Shudra
Yeah.
are entitled to worship, but they are to worship at home.
Uh-huh.
The standards of home standards. And what we are seeing is Prabhupada gave home standards to pretty much all of his ISKCON temples.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to Vrindavana, especially he wanted the scholars and many of them to accept ISKCON, because in
Uh-huh.
India there is a very strong Vaidika, and actually what Prabhupada established as home standard as the Bhagavata Marga is very powerful. It is sufficient. You see, the
Are you making Conte's argument right now? That
No.
didn't you say cultural sensitivity is the carpet to sweep all the ashastric things underneath?
No, but in what way I said that is ashastriya now? I am saying cultural sensitivity of following one rule, but Prabhupada gave us the home standard. So according to the home standard of worship, anybody can worship deities. So there is nothing ashastriya here.
Okay. So are all of so let me just see if I've got this straight, because I've got to make sure I got this right. In India, in the ISKCON temples, are there ISKCON temples in India where women do deity worship?
I want to say not that I know of, but
Okay.
I don't think so.
So are you telling me that all of the temples outside of India have a home standard of deity worship that allows women to worship them? But in India, all of the temples...
That is one harmonization I see, that why Prabhupada never violated Shastra.
I see. Okay.
And that if somebody is going to find fault with Prabhupada for that, I'm going to support Prabhupada from the Shastras.
But to support your, I mean, there could be another explanation, or this could be it, but it relies on that the temple standard of worship in India has to be significantly different from that in the other temples outside of India for that to be valid.
The temple standards within India is pretty much what Prabhupada gave only. They didn't change anything. But it's only that women are not engaged in
deity worship in India.
Yeah.
But they use the home standard of the Nam.
Can you hold on a second? There's nobody.
Sure.
I don't know why nobody is responding to the doorbell.
A package has arrived from Amazon.
I think so.
I don't know if you
just a minute.
Amazon in India. Sure. Okay, Krishna Kirti Das says that it's not cultural sensitivity. I don't know. It seems like it is. I'm not hearing that there's so women don't do the deity worship in the major temples. I'd say that's because people in India would freak out if they did. Which kind of makes Prabhupada having women worshipping on the altar in the West kind of like the cultural sensitivity argument.
Well, sorry, I missed that part. What
Krishna
you're saying
Kirti's
is
out here shouting it out. It's not cultural sensitivity. It's not. Okay.
Okay. So again, Sitapati Prabhu, one important thing is sometimes some questions are very difficult for us to find answers, but our spirit must be Shastra is the center, and we try to harmonize. This is called Shastra Yonitvat, and this is what Prabhupada instructs us to do in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 20.352 purport. So, for example, if we are not sure about something, better we don't do it. That's my
give
point.
you, I got it. Let me argue on your side for a second. In the West, Prabhupada did something unprecedented, and he can do that because he's a self-manifest acārya. And then in India, they're doing it closer to the Shastric standard. And so we can go closer to the Shastric standard, but we're not Prabhupada that we can go further away. Which takes me to my next question.
Good.
The absence of the primary protector. So this is a pragmatic one. You know, like you said that, and this is following the Manu Samhita, a woman is under the protection of her father, then her husband, then her grown sons. Now, in the West, those protectors are not present. And so what to do about that situation? You know, do we say that, you know, well, you know, we can't have a brahmacharini ashram? I mean, Prabhupada established that, right? Because those protectors are not present.
Yeah, I answer that point in my book. Prabhupada established brahmacharini ashram, but that was not his be-all, end-all and final resort, that forever. He wanted all the brahmacharinis get married. So he wrote specifically that initially the temple president is acting as a protector, but he has to get as a father, as an adopted father, as an adopted children, and he has to get them married. He has to find matches for them. So where is the brahmacharini ashram? How would you call this brahmacharini ashram if they are going to enter grihastha ashram? It's a bachelor ashram until it is a protectors. So temple presidents and the temple are temporary protectors, and they're going to find a match. But if there is a brahmachari joining, we don't get him married. Temples don't get brahmacharis get married. I mean, the brahmachari may find it difficult and move out of the temple and get married. That's fine.
Well, that's the system, right? It's like brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, maybe sannyas.
Brahmachari resides at the Gurukula, Guru's house, in this case ISKCON temple. But when he finds that he's not able to remain a brahmachari, he finds that he wants to, so he expresses that interest to the Guru, technically. I'm loosely using the term, a temple president, and tries to find his ways to enter a grihastha ashram, but he is out of the ashram. So, but there is an option for a brahmachari to stay in brahmachari forever. But Prabhupada's intention of creating brahmacharini ashram is, yes, it's little unprecedented, but it is emergency. But he was acting as a father. He himself said in his purports that a sannyasi should not perform marriages. But this is apatakala. He cannot help. He's gone into a place where he's creating. So there is a verse in Apastamba Sutra 1.1.1.2 and 3, which is Dharmagnya Samaye Pramanam Vedascha. Very simple. Dharmagnya means an expert performer of dharma, executor, a dharmagnya. Whatever activities he does is in itself an evidence, provided that is not against Shastra. And if nothing is mentioned in Shastra. So what the Shastra says is a woman shall always be protected by father, husband and son. In case of no protectors, no father, no husband, no son, then she shall be protected by the king. So in our system, who is the king? Whoever is assigned, appointed.
Temple president.
Temple president for that time.
Yeah.
They have a kingdom. Yes.
Yeah, the small kingdom. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Somehow it matched into the territorial aspect of ISKCON. Sorry to say.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Krishna Kirti says all of Srila Prabhupada's adjustments in the West can be explained by two principles, apad dharma. from the Bhagavatam 7:11-17, where all members can perform means of livelihood of other varnas in a time of emergency. And the second is rules are relaxed just to give the mind a chance to become fixed on Krishna. Once that happens, then all the rules and regulations will follow. And he then explained that what you just explained is according to this dharma of the emergency situation.
And I was going to say that the Dharmajna Samaya, a Dharmajna will never do anything that is not specified in Shastra, or not do anything that is not against Shastra, even though it may not be specified. See, some things may not be specified in Shastra, but if he does an activity and that act is not Shastra Viruddha, it is not violating some other Shastra, then it's Veda, to be considered as Veda.
Okay. Here's a question from my wife.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
So
Don't you
Dana
think
Devi
that
asks,
there are protectors in every corner of the world, but they are trained as
They are not
trained
trained.
as principal. Yes, this is again, Mataji, great question actually. She's asking the other side. What about there are protectors who are not trained, but they have taken the role as protector? And that's where exploitation comes. This is not good. Actually, this is where Prabhupada says again and again that a husband should be very much focused on Krishna conscious. He must be very rigorously training himself, be strictly trained, and then only he can act as a protector. So there have been some incidences. I'm not going to say no to those things. But how do we get over it? We have to establish Varnashrama Dharma. We don't have that. And the other day that Sitapati Prabhu, you had a great solution of trying to, if you don't know what to do or if you want to do what you want to do, check astrology chart anyway. A good astrologer.
My wife is all about the astrology charts, man. She's like, she got my chart done. She got our son's chart done. She's obviously had her chart done. Our daughter's chart, everything. It's like everything according to Patita Pavana and Abhaya Mudra Prabhu's.
Can you hear me? There was a small glitch.
Yeah, that's okay, Prabhu. I was just,
Yeah.
astrology.
Definitely. So, go ahead, Prabhu.
Oh, you're dropping out a bit there, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I think you're back now.
I'm able to hear you now.
Fantastic. So you were saying about astrology.
Is it okay? Yeah.
It's a little bit dropping in and out. I can hear someone beeping their horn in the background.
Oh, somebody started.
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Still breaking in and out.
Still breaking up? Let's maybe try, could you try turning off your camera? Maybe that might help.
I switched my network.
Okay, maybe that'll help.
How about now?
It seems okay. I'll stop my camera. You got a nice picture of me here in my wizard's robes.
Well, I can hear you now quite clear. I switched my network.
Okay. Yeah, let's see how this goes. How's it now?
Much better.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, this leads us into this last part. You know, we've considered the ideal standards of the scriptures, and then we do see that there is a gradient from, you know, even let us say India across to the West. And, you know, in the emergency measures, in the absence of primary protectors, So, yeah, I've got just one final point about the female Diksha Guru that I want to bring in at the end. But in the meantime, you still with me? You're on mute at the moment.
No, I because there's some background noise, I don't want to introduce it. That's why.
All good. Okay, good. So there is a question from Kavita that we will get back to. And this idea of the antyaja. Now, in the conversation with Jivan Mukta, I said, Muchakunda was there. He said, well, maybe only men read the scriptures and women only, have access to that through men. And I was like, I remember reading that the Mahabharata is written for the Shudras and the women. So I'm like, that's the Bhagavad Gita. So we're reading the scriptures that are meant for the women ourselves. And then you mentioned that the Bharadvaja Pancharatra, I think, says something about that. You're on mute if you're still with me.
So I heard you in bits and pieces. Can you quickly summarize your question in a short sentence for me?
Yeah.
I heard that you were mentioning about your conversation with Jivan Mukta Prabhu, and as part of Mahabharata,
Yes.
is meant for Stri Shudra Antyaja.
Yes. And then you said that the Bharadwaja Shastra that
Samhita.
you've mentioned, Samhita? Bharadwaja
Yes.
Samhita, says something about that.
I don't know if that's
It's
a
breaking
network
up for you
issue on
still,
your
is it?
or my side.
Let me check. If you're up in the comments, can you let us know how the streams are going? If you can see me still, okay. And
Yeah, I'm able
my
to hear
camera's
you.
looking-
I mean, it's coming in and going out. So,
okay.
which category does Bharadwaj Samhita? Is it for the people of, or is it for Kshatriyas?
Krishna Kirti says my stream's going okay. It seems like it's the connection at your end, Prabhu.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe let me
So
see.
the
Can I
question
stop your
is-
camera?
Maybe I
Mhm.
can also.
Can you maybe stop your camera?
So can you hear me?
Yes,
Is it
sounds
okay?
great.
Uh,
Sounds good.
So my understanding of your question is, where does Bharadwaj Samhita fit in terms of whether it is for this yuga or is it for this varna? I mean, the Stri Shudra for Bharadwaj Samhita. Is that
No, my question is more along this lines. Let's take it in a more general sense. We're going from antyaja into the system, into the varnashram system, which includes roles for Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and for Sadvi, Stri. And Prabhupada's built like a bridge to take us into that system. Did you catch me so far, Prabhu?
Well, what happened is there was a power glitch, and I don't know if you're coming in and going out. It's got nothing.
Okay. This is epic. This is so India. I'm loving it. Yeah, maybe some cell tower has gone out somewhere along the way.
Well, that's my point. Let me try switching back to this.
Okay, let's give it another couple of minutes. Let's have a look.
Okay,
Krishna,
can you hear me now? Srila Prabhupada did not build the bridge, not his bridge. He just introduced us to it.
I don't know about that because Srila Prabhupada introduced things like the brahmacharya ashram, giving women initiation, and we can see that there is a gradient. Well, let me ask this to you, Prabhu. It seems to me that Srila Prabhupada, in coming to the West, modified things to be culturally, not to be culturally sensitive, but to be transcendentally pragmatic about the reality about what was happening there.
Okay. So, Prabhu, what I would
Yes.
is for everyone, for all yugas. This actually takes us to that other point that I would like to answer, so that we address two things in one place. As we in Kali Yuga, Kalau Shudra Sambhavaha, the verse that says Janmana Jayate iti Shudra, all these things clearly state that when we are born, especially in Kali Yuga, we are born in a Shudra or even Antyaja platform. Now, how the Pancharatra is the only way. There is no Vaidika method. Vaidika will not work for us because we are all Antyajas. Antyajas really have to take another birth into Trivarnikas or Varna system. But there is a way in Pancharatra scriptures. The Pancharatra method is the only way by which anybody can be elevated to go back home, back to Godhead. The verse from Bhagavad Gita, that says, what's that verse? I always forget. It's slipping my mind. E apisyu papayonayo. What is that first beginning?
Even those of lower birth, sinful birth, be they Vaishyas, Shudras, or women.
Yeah.
Taking shelter of me.
Even if they are of any birth, sinful birth, woman, Shudra, Vaishya, they can attain me.
Yes.
And the method for this is the mystical method of Pancharatra, which is what we are getting as Diksha. The Harinama Diksha, the saṁskāra that we are getting a change of name. We are applying tilaka. We are putting kantimala. Tapa Pundra Nama Yaga Mantra, Pancha Samskar, five things we do. This is the way prescribed in Bharatvat Samhita. So yes, Bharatvat Samhita is very much for the Antyajas to elevate them. But it's not only for Antyajas. It's for everyone of every yuga. But it comes handy right in Kali Yuga. So an Antyaja becomes a Vaishnava only through this Tantra. Sometimes Pancharatras are referred to as Tantra, they are referred to as Agama, and they are referred to as Pancharatra themselves. These three terms all refer to the method of Tantric method. But this is not a bad word in that sometimes Tantras are also done for lower modes people who are in very, very lower mode of ignorance. Tantras can get them out or get some relief. So don't get baffled when I say I'm asking my audience, when I say use the word Tantra, sometimes, what is this? Tantric. No, it is the Tantra in the Sattvata mode. Basically, it's called Pancharatra Agama. So that is the very method by which I'll give another answer. In Bhagavatam, there is a verse, very famous verse, comes in the very beginning part. Shushrugo Shatadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi. Yan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. Canto 1, chapter 2, text 16. Anybody who has little faith, Shraddha Dana, they can, and if they do some service for a pure devotee, his Krishna consciousness begins. So that service is simply possible by using the Pancharatra method of initiating that person into Harinama chanting. The Harinama chanting comes under Nama Samskar of the Pancharatra scriptures. So my point is, Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. Yes, Mahabharata has got it's although it's meant for Shudras, three Adishu, still it contains the highest teachings for everyone to follow. Same way, Bharadwaj Samhita is specifically meant for people who are not even having the qualification to anyway touch any of these scriptures.
Mm.
And Bharadwaj Samhita mentions one great point, that there is a question one may ask: how are we distributing Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam to anybody and everybody? We are not distributing Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam by verses alone. We are distributing it with purports. And in Bharadwaj Samhita, chapter 1, text 54, it clearly says, Laukika pratilomas, Laukika Bhashyaika Laukika Mantram. What this means is, for pratilomas, pretty much antyajas, pratilomas means antyajas. What is the mantra? The commentary is the way they have to study. So we all are supposed to study Prabhupada books, and that is why we are successful. That is why Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, even though should not be given to Pratiloma, because it is given in conjunction with Prabhupada purports, this is the answer that we get transformed.
Epic.
So,
love it.
Exactly. That's how I felt.
It's amazing. The Prabhupada Bhashya.
Prabhupada Bhashya and Laukika Mantra in regional languages. So that's why we need to translate Prabhupada's verses into so many languages. So, yes.
And I'm just going to give a shout out to the first edition books. That's why we shouldn't change them either.
Okay. I don't want to go into that now, but
that's fine. You don't have to. I'm just, that's a call out to my regular viewers. They know what I'm talking about there. But yeah, no, I love it, Prabhu. Just to kind of land the whole thing. So proponents of female Diksa Gurus, I haven't had an in-depth conversation. I've read some of the materials, some of the books. I would say that they'd say that, hey, this is just a further evolution. Prabhupada made, changes, and, we need to make some more changes. And we're building a bridge to the culture. People won't take us seriously if we don't do this. We seem like we're backwards and oppressive to people. And society is becoming even more and more egalitarian in the West, and it's just regressive and repressive to not allow women, to have the same kind of opportunities that men have. And then I'm going to throw this in. I'm just making the arguments up, right? This is not the Middle Ages where women have to stay home and look after the kids, They can have children or not have children. They can have their own independent careers as lawyers or doctors. They can be high court judges. They can be president, prime minister of New Zealand. And you're going to say that they can't have this leadership role, in ISKCON. It just seems very backwards.
Yeah, I'm sure you already asked me how you can get a copy of my book. And
yes.
Many of these propositions that you put forward, based on Sadhu Shastra, Guru Vakyas. And I'm not going to say I agree or disagree right now on this call, but I really urge you, and you already have asked me to send it to you. So I really request you to go through patiently the 352 pages of my book. And definitely there will be something, I'm positive, because just like you saw certain satisfactions in understanding how Prabhupada's words is Bhashyaika Laukika Mantram. So I request you to go through this book when you get a chance, when I send it to you, and I'll try to figure out how to send it to you. And I also want you to take a copy of this one, because why I'm saying these two books, in this book, I use the same purport of Prabhupada, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 20.352, where Prabhupada says Shastra is the center of all. And I present this, that whatever Alvar has predicted is based on Shastra of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I compare Alvar's writings with Srimad Bhagavatam and put up the case that both of them are referring to the growing 10,000 years Vaishnavism that Srila Prabhupada predicted and the Alvar has predicted. Same thing.
Oh, really?
So I connect. Yes,
Okay.
that's what this book is about. And that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu plays, and the ISKCON devotees play a very important part. And Bhaktivedanta Thakur also mentioned that the devotees from the east and the devotees from the west will meet somewhere in the middle and chant Jaya Sachinandana. So all these things are happening. That's there in this first book. And that is because we have to see God in Shastra as center of all. And this book, the theme is we have to see Guru in Shastra as the center of all. So I request you to go through this book, probably the two books, and then I'm sure you and I will have detailed conversation if you want, and I'm available every day, anytime.
100%. Yeah, I'd just like to share a reflection about what I got from this conversation and a couple of comments here. So this one's from my wife again. She says, Srila Prabhupada was practical, pragmatic, tactical genius. As an emergency practice in an emergency situation, he did all of the necessary to save lives of lost souls. Did he build a bridge or did he introduce the bridge? And Krishna Kirti Prabhu says,
he
Srila
introduced us to the
Prabhupada did
same
not
bridge.
build the bridge. He just introduced us to it. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to answer that in a.
Yeah.
I think Srila Prabhupada took the bridge that was all the time built by previous acharyas like Ramanujacharya to the west and implanted it there. Why I say that is, whatever Prabhupada faced as the biggest challenge was what Ramanujacharya was facing, but within the Vedic paradigm. And I want to say one thing, that Ramanujacharya, during the time of Ramanujacharya, the teachings of Vedas were coming. One guru would select one disciple, and there will be one-to-one for how many years it takes to finish the Siksha, Diksha, everything. And this guru, this Shishya becomes another guru by himself. If this guru is still alive, he would take another disciple. He would not accept multiple disciples.
Right.
And this is a very, very great statement. And that's how things were coming. Oran oru variyal ubadesittar in Tamil. One-to-one way was the method of instruction. That was the existing paradigm. Now Ramanujacharya came and revolutionized this by breaking the so-called, I say loosely use the term breaking. He introduced a system where he designated 72 Simha seats, 74 seats of knowledge that anybody who desires can go to them and learn. So he brought about a change. He brought a big, that time it was a big bridge to build. But that was not a new thing that he did. It was previously done by other acharyas. Prior to him came Shankaracharya. He built a bridge when there was nothing called a bridge. The whole thing was completely Nashtika, Bauddha, Shunya. So I would say that by the will of the Lord, these acharyas are sent to enhance and bring people to the bridge, I would say. The bridge is there. We are not coming to the bridge. We are refusing to come to the bridge. And so he knows the ways to bring us to the bridge.
Yeah,
So
I got it.
He took the same bridge that was there in Vedic culture. But he brought, I would say, see, I was born in a Śrī Vaiṣṇava family, but I was going in a direction I was much, much worse than any of the lecture background born people. Because I did things that were much, much worse. But who brought me back to the bridge? So I found Srila Prabhupada again, and that's what I would say. And he brought it through his representatives. I would still see Harivilas Prabhu and Mukunda Datta Prabhu. They were the ones that were, I would actually tell my wife, these two devotees, this was before I got initiated and serious also. I would say they both are actually from India. They are little fair in complexion. Because they used to speak so nice Sanskrit. They would recite so nice verses and explain it so. Says Harivilas Prabhu was from Armenia and Mukunda Datta Prabhu is from Los Angeles. I would argue with her. No, you don't know. They are from India. They are just little fair complexion because they speak so nice. I'm just saying that I'm so thankful to the devotees of Srila Prabhupada. They absorbed that, they taught us to, and they brought us to the bridge, especially in my case. But I understand what Mataji is saying and how she feels, because in India, I'm going to say my humble opinion, in India, Prabhupada, because he taught us Shastra as it is. In West, devotees know Shastra only after knowing Srila Prabhupada. So it's a unique feeling. I understand and I appreciate that feeling that without Prabhupada, there is no chance for all of these Western devotees to come to this platform of where we are.
100%. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So I would like to kind of to wrap up, to end where we started, with a statement of, where was that from? Did I get to write it down? Where it says that, remember I asked you the first question, can we have female Diksa Gurus? And you said,
do we need them or,
well, yeah,
do we need them or can we have them? Okay.
No, it was at the very beginning of the whole episode, about nearly 2 hours ago. And you answered it by quoting from somewhere that says that Sri should be including antyaja, I believe, if they are pratyaksha,
yes,
tatmana,
pratyakshita atmanatanam. Pratyakshita atmanatanam. The meaning of that is, pratyakshita means pratyaksha, directly manifest, seeing with, direct perception. Atma, the self. Nata, Atma Nata is the Lord of the self. So if they can relate and see and communicate with the Atma Nata, that is their qualification.
So those pure souls, be they within the body of a Shudra, a woman, whatever.
Doesn't matter. And we see this throughout the tradition. We see this throughout the Vedic tradition. And you can see, even I would say Mother Suniti was such a devotee. Dhruva Maharaja comes with so much, 5-year-old boy coming and asking and taking things so seriously, and she coolly tells him that, she tells him about Narayana. And he tells him to go see Narayana. I mean, this is even more direct, personified realization. She didn't tell you go, do some tapasya. You just go to the forest, he is there, and you will see him. So in that way, and Queen Kunti, Mother Devahuti, so many Draupadis, and that's what Jivan Mukta Prabhu was also saying when we listen to the conversations of Satyabhama and Draupadi. They bring out the power of Shakti, Mother. The power of Mother is simply, my mother was telling me that after she saw the title, do you want to sell this book to Matajis or not? And I asked, why do you say so? And she said, because you titled it in certain ways as provoking. But then she read through this and she said, you could have asked my suggestion for a title. Anyway, Mother is Mother. I should have.
Yeah, 100%.
But again, I fully appreciate. I'm not trying to come out here to say, but we really have to see this from Shastra, Sadhu, Guru, Vakya. And as you also mentioned in the other talk, it's almost, and Jivan Mukta Prabhu was saying, and Krishna Kirti Prabhu was saying the same thing, that it's, if at all we are going to do some revolution in this not so hopeful Kali Yuga, I think this Daiva Varnashrama will be the revolution. But we have to be very patient. We cannot dismiss so soon anything, and we cannot, fanatically, without discussion. So this is what I have been asking even in my book. But by the time I was ready to publish my book, they already made a guru. They already had a disciple. So I had to little bit change my plea. My plea was, I was supposed to release this book sometime last year. If I had done that, the plea would have been, let us come to the discussion table. I mean, the conversation that I'm having with you is so great. Not that you may agree everything with me, not that I may agree everything with you right away, but we are at least beginning to understand in a very sober way. And this was my plea. Let's not hurry these things up. Let's try to first implement Varnashrama Dharma to the extent possible. And gradually take this up as a serious, everybody come together. And my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, has multiple times mentioned that we should all get into the Samadhi Mandir, Pushpaka Samadhi Mandir of Mayapur, and chant.
And do kirtan.
Do kirtan, read Prabhupada books together. And then don't allot a time like you are doing now. I'm very glad. You are so generous. You are allotting as much time as it needed for this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I can add my perspective to this, what I've got from this conversation, I don't find that the conclusions are necessarily different. And when I was coming on here, like with Jivan Mukta, I was expecting some hardcore kind of chauvinist kind of thing, but you were even like, I was going to call the book Female Diksa Gurus, Not Too Many, right? It's not like absolutely no, and no, they never can. No, nothing like that, And what I noticed from your presentation, I haven't read the book yet. It's 352 pages. I'm looking forward to getting it. I'll read the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
But what I noticed from your overview is it seems to be not an attack on the conclusion, but more a critique of the praman that they're using to stand on to get to where they're going. And what I've been hearing in this conversation about the bridge and how that is, although it might appear novel in the moment, like, oh, he just built that. No, he's introducing us to something that has its basis in the Shastra. And so those are just not they're not innovations that come from the culture. Those are extensions from the Shastra into the world that people can go up. So he's introducing us to the bridge that already exists, but may not be manifested. And and I heard from at the very beginning that, yeah, there is the self-realized soul within the body of a self-manifested, cannot be stopped. The pure soul who has seen the Lord in the body, whatever body it might be, yeah, of course, self-manifested, but creating a new category that doesn't exist in Shastra in order to answer the concerns or the whims or the fads of some other culture is going to be it's incompatible with Shastra. It's taking us away from Guru Sadhu Shastra Vakya. That's what I got
in short, we cannot make an institution of female guru institution, but we have to wait for self-manifestation. And to detect, we have to implement Varnashrama Dharma, because we are not there to even come over anartha nivritti phase, and all of us have to work towards it. And there will be the Varnashrama Dharma, Daiva Varnashrama Dharma setup is the easiest way and the best way to implement anartha nivritti phase. And then we come to this easily. We can come to this, and definitely, if there is somebody amongst us who is a self-realized soul, self-manifesting to us, we will be able to see them. But let's not go and hurry this up by wedging something into something.
Yep. I love it. Yep, I got it. It's not a no. It's not even a. It's not a no. And here we go. He's going to delete the comment in 30 minutes. Get it in there. Krishna Kirti says that his wife suggested the title for your book, so it's Śrī certified.
I forgot to mention.
Sure that I got. Yeah, and I made sure I got my wife's blessing before I came on this stream and got her to give me, her input and where to take the conversation. So yeah, I'd like to end with that then. An acknowledgement of the seven mothers without whom none of us would be here: the earth, the wife of the king, the mother who gives birth to us, the body that we have, the wife of the spiritual master, the guru, the one who nurses the cow, Gomata, and there must be one more. One more wife. Did I miss one?
Mother Earth, Mother Cow, Mother Nurse. The
mother who gives birth to the body?
Yeah, the physical mother, the biological mother.
The wife of the guru, the wife of the king.
Queen.
Yep, the queen.
And Guru Patni.
Guru Patni, that's 6.
Yeah, and
there's one.
Oh.
Harshal Dubai comes in with the Guru Patni. There's one of the 7 mothers missing. It's incomplete without her. Who is she? The wife of the Guru.
Guru Patni. He said wife of the Guru.
Amiyama Das comes through.
Yeah, wife of a Brahmana, Vipra. Yes.
There we go.
There you go.
The 7 mothers.
And I want to add one more, who is the Mother Lakshmi. So she is her son is Brahma, and from whom we get our knowledge. So yes, Mother Lakshmi is our guru too, and that's the point. And she is an initiating guru, Mother Lakshmi. So
female Diksa Gurus, not too many. Very special souls. Thank you so much for coming on, Prabhu. Thank you to everyone who's listening in and contributing to the conversation today. And dandavats to the opponents who you've spoken to in your book, and they're also contributing to this conversation. And this is a conversation where we might not agree, but we all can agree on one thing, and is that we are all products of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.